Good evening. I'd like to call a meeting to order. This is the January 24th, 2018 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. Our first item of business is a notice of intent by LEC Environmental Consultants, DEP 206-0771. This particular notice of intent has asked for a continuation once again. It's the Concord River Greenway project. I believe they're asking to be put on a February agenda.
I'll make a motion to continue this to the February,
It was the 28th.
February 28th?
Yeah.
February 28th meeting?
Motion to continue to February 28th, seconded.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Bill, and all those in favor.
Aye.
New business on our agenda. First is the request for determination of applicability by the Cultural Organization of Lowell. The project location is 369.1 Jackson Street. It's for an installation of a stainless steel structure within 100 feet of the Merrimack Canal, the Hamilton Canal, and the Pawtucket Canal. And it's a public art installation for the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. We had a bit of a preview of this at our last meeting, and now this is a formal request for a determination. Is there someone here for Cool?
Hi, Andrew
Welcome.
Jacobson from Cultural Organization of Lowell.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We had some handouts at the last meeting, and I believe we have a diagram of what this installation will look like. Is there anything changed since the last time you were here as far as materials?
I think the major change was the update. I think you have the corrected versions with the correct distance from the canal. So it's beyond the 25 feet.
Okay, we do have those distances. I believe our concerns would be disturbance near the canal walls, erosion control, storage areas for soil on site, and I think the art project was of interest to most people. But getting down to the mechanics of how this is going to go, we did have a better diagram showing the construction entrance, the storage site, distances from the canals. I think a question I had as I was looking at this, is this just for this art installation, or are you going to be working on the whole site as far as finishing it up or doing the remainder of any work that may be left there?
This work is mainly focused just on the public art installation.
sculpture.
Afterwards, the city would be, putting in whatever grass seeds are necessary to,
Oh, yeah.
and then maintaining the park as they normally would.
Okay, I know they have started on that site.
Yes, there is stuff that is bushes and stuff and flowers that are already there and will be redone later.
Okay, so what I don't really see here is you're proposing in writing erosion control along the edges of the project, if I'm correct.
Wait, repeat that?
I know you have erosion control proposed around the stockpile site,
Yes,
The
yep,
straw
and around the
wattles.
project, yep.
and you would also be putting that around perhaps it would be at the edge of the grassed area?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, we're gonna make sure that it's blocked off around really both parts, the excavation site as well as where everything is going.
Okay, and I'm not aware of any drainage structures out there. Are there any sewer drains or storm control outlets or,
Possibly in the parking lot, but nothing that I'm aware of that's over there.
right, I didn't see anything.
Yeah. Nothing that I recall that anything would potentially get into.
Right, it's fairly level, it's gonna be level when you're finished.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, Caitlin,
I have no comments. Yep.
Bill,
No comments?
Caitlin? Okay, this is a RDA, so with the proposal as it is here, I don't see a whole lot to be concerned about.
So I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
-3,
And I'll second that.
okay, -3 made and seconded. Any further comments from the board? We do usually allow comments from the public, even though it's an RDA. Would anyone like to speak regarding this project? Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick comments. I'm Henry Marchand. I'm with the Cultural Affairs and Special Events Office. We're working with Cool. As you know, the history of this park is that it was built with a piece of public art in mind and began in 2011. We've had meetings. Our city engineers will be working with them in helping to assess and inspect. And we think this will be a great project and appreciate your support.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a negative determination, -3, means that it is applicable. However, there are no negative impacts expected from the project as proposed. So, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, and thank you very much, and good
Look forward
luck.
to seeing it.
Thank you all very much. We do too.
Next on our agenda, we have a notice of intent by Vinas Hangan and Brucelin, VHB, let's see, with the benefit of the city of Lowell, the location is 350.4 Dutton Street, and the DEP file number is 206-776. This is a notice of intent on behalf of the city of Lowell to construct a public parking garage at 350.4 Dutton Street, which it basically is behind the National Park parking lot, located in the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. The proposed work will occur within bank, bordering land subject to flooding, and the 100-foot buffer zone. The bank will also be altered by construction of a new outfall for stormwater collected from the eastern portion of the site. We have people here.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, Commission members. For the record, Joseph Chenoweth, Urban Renewal Project Manager on behalf of the City of Lowell. I'm here tonight with Chris Gradziel from Walker Consultants, Justin Mosca, Miranda Volpicelli, Gene Crouch, and Tori Brown from VHB. And we're pleased to present the notice of intent with you tonight for the future public parking garage in the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. I'll just start off by giving a little context to the project. So right in pretty much the center of the screen, giving kind of an aerial view, you'll have the Hamilton Canal District with the project site highlighted in blue. So people probably know that the Hamilton Canal District had a pretty extensive planning process to create a vision, kind of an extension of downtown. So you have pretty much downtown proper to the right in this map. Then from the visioning process, you had the vision for the district. Again, it's a mixed-use area, and then the area that's kind of a light purple color, that's parcel 14 in the district, and that's where the parking garage structure is proposed to support other development within the district. And then this is just a quick site overview. So what you see here are two proposed streets. Right now they're just called Streets F and Street G. The entrance and exit to the garage are off of Street G. This has been a project that's had a couple of different iterations, and as we've gone through, we've been trying to minimize our environmental impacts as well as the impacts to adjacent properties. So I hope as we go through that you'll be able to see that tonight and be able to issue an order of conditions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tori Brown to get into more specifics. Thank you.
Tori Brown with VHB. So just to go over some of the wetland resource areas that we have. So this is a screenshot of the plan set. So associated with the lower Pawtucket Canal, as well as a former tail race outlet channel known as the Wasteway, which you can see it's the vertical blue line. And so wetland resource areas are associated with the lower Pawtucket Canal and a former tail race outlet known as the Wasteway. Vertical granite block walls serve as the upper boundary of the bank. In the presentation, I've highlighted those in a dark blue line. We don't have 200-foot riverfront area because these are man-made canal walls. Land under water bodies and waterways I've shaded in a lighter blue. Average water level of the canal is elevation 71.1 feet, so we've used that as the assumed mean low water level. So even though we have that on the site, we don't actually have any work being conducted within land under water bodies. Portions of the project are located within Zone A floodplain for the 100-year storm event, which generally isn't associated with the base flood elevation. But on April 17, 2012, FEMA issued a letter of map amendment for the lower Pawtucket Canal just downstream of the site. So they determined that the elevation was 76.9 feet. Using that number as the flood elevation, we don't have, the floodplain is confined within the stone retaining walls. At the northern end of the Wasteway Canal, there's a partially vegetated riprap slope that extends down from the granite retaining walls. This slope I've highlighted in orange on the plan set, and we are proposing the new creation of the new outfall there, and that's within floodplain. So I have a few photos to give you a better idea of the site. This is a view of the Wasteway. Taken on December 18th, 2017, when the canal was being managed with very low water levels. So there's actually no water in the Wasteway right there. So this is a southern view of the site. This is a better idea of what the riprap slope actually looks like. This is where we are proposing the construction of the new stormwater outfall. And then this is another view of the Wasteway taken from within the channel, and you can see where it empties out into the lower Pawtucket Canal down at the end there. This is looking south. And then here's another view of the site. This is upstream of the site looking eastward back at the parcel. So you've got the lower Pawtucket Canal on the right, and then the Wasteway is over by the building adjacent to the foundation over on the left. So going back to the plan set, impacts, we have approximately 12 linear feet of permanent impacts, 13 feet of temporary impacts, and those are associated with the new outfall at the northern end of the Wasteway. And then bordering land subject to flooding, we have about 120 square feet of permanent impact and 840 square feet of temporary impact to bordering land subject to flooding, also associated with the new outfall. I'm going to turn it over to Miranda Volpicelli for the drainage and erosion controls.
Hello, Miranda Volpicelli with VHB. I'm going to be talking about stormwater and erosion controls. The site is currently divided into two drainage areas with two separate design points. The primary design point is the lower Pawtucket Canal, where the majority of the site discharges stormwater runoff to. The other design point is the Merrimack Canal, and just a small portion of the design analysis area discharges stormwater runoff there via a closed drainage system in the MPS parking lot. I'll just speak to that northern portion briefly. We're meeting or just below existing peaks and volumes. We're almost matching 1-to-1 there. Actually, maybe just a little bit better. But primarily the pervious and impervious areas will be very similar from existing into proposed conditions. In the proposed condition, we're actually reducing overall impervious area. So we're reducing volumes, we're reducing peak just from that linear analysis. The site is also has been identified to have contaminant soils. So with the reduction of impervious areas and with the contaminated soils, we are not proposing infiltration. Moving on to some of the other parts of the site, there is a proposed green roof, that will provide some LID improvements as far as it relating to the stormwater aspect. The drainage patterns of the proposed conditions, the entire roof system will discharge west of the site, where it will be treated through a water quality unit. It will then take the runoff from parcel 13 adjacent to it. Parcel 13 is not is adjacent to it, and we'll be doing some improvements in that area just due to the nature of the proximity to our current project. That runoff will not be treated on site, but will connect into the roadway system and will actually be treated farther downstream as part of the roadway drainage. The east side of the proposed structure, let me start with the north side. There is a driveway, a small driveway that will capture runoff via catch basins, deep sump catch basins, that will be then directed to another water quality unit, and then it will then flow downstream towards the wasteway. Again, that vertical piece that kind of comes up from the lower Pawtucket, and discharge in through the new outlet as Tori had discussed. Also coming through that same outlet will be portion of a walkway along the east side, the canal walk, or canal walls there, and some portions of that will be captured via area drains and also sent to the outfall. So erosion controls primarily will be perimeter at all down gradient locations. It's pretty much the entire site, almost with the exception of that northeast portion where there's an existing wall there. So it's pretty well protected at that point. Silt sacks or inlet protection devices will be provided for nearby catch basins as well. There's also, a construction stabilized entrance for construction entrance is for the contractor as well. And I believe at this point I will open it up to questions.
What's that?
You might ask a question.
Go ahead.
Just while we're trying to pull our questions together, I had a clarifying question. If you go to your figure that has basically your overview, right, that one's fine right
Okay.
there. I think you said where the perpendicular to the canal, we call the waste canal,
Tail race, wasteway.
you're going to have an outfall at the northern end of that.
That's correct.
So is the idea to, I assume somewhere there's going to be catch basins within, stormwater catch basins within, the perimeter of the garage. Is the idea that they're all going to eventually tie in and discharge out at that outfall, following, treated, then, get conveyed over to that outfall and then ultimately make it to the canal?
So I'll just, the deep sun hooded catch basins will be in the driveway. There'll be two of them to serve each basically exit and entry lanes. There's a divider island in between the two, so they'll be captured via the catch basins and then sent to a water quality unit for TSS removal, and then at that point they are sent down to the outfall.
And could you give a little bit of insight on this proprietary water quality unit? What's it actually doing to remove solids?
Because it's a city job where it's not necessarily, the documents that we submitted are samples. So will require for 80% TSS removal through a vortex type system. It'll drag
All right,
sediments down.
so it's basically physical removal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I did get a look at this site probably a year ago. We were actually looking at the bridge, and so we got an idea of, the extent of the location of this particular garage. It's kind of hard to visualize when you're just looking at a vacant lot out there. But I was wondering about the lower floors. There are 2 floors below ground. Am I correct in that?
That's correct,
Yeah.
yep.
I think you said something about groundwater at, I don't have the figures here.
There'll
How-
be an under drain system as part of the foundation system of the garage that will be pumped up and captured within the storm drainage system.
Okay.
And that will be discharged to the west, sorry.
And will that be under the entire footprint there, close to the canal walls, or just partially?
So it's probably a little hard to see, but the garage structure is actually set back from the garage, the canal walls about 15 feet, both on the east side and on the south side. So I believe the underground foundation will extend the entire. So beneath the entire footprint of the garage.
Okay, and it's a pump system that removes any stormwater that might flow in there?
Well, groundwater that may infiltrate from
groundwater.
the bottom,
Mhm.
or rise through, to keep the garage floors below grade level dry anyway.
Could you say a little more about the green, is there a green roof?
There is a green
proposed?
roof. It'll be located there in the green strip on the east side of the garage. I think it was part of the form-based code. It was a requirement, primarily probably for the condos across the wasteway there. The plantings and so forth will be designed by a landscape architect in accordance with the form-based code.
No, we have another green roof nearby on one of the other buildings, and that seemed to be doing well, but is there maintenance involved? I know this is a city building. Who's going to be maintaining this green roof?
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. It's still a little to be determined. It's either going to be the city's DPW or there'll be a maintenance contract through the parking department that'll be to take care of the green roof.
Thank you. Did you take into account the bridge that's proposed for, I guess it's right adjacent to this?
Yes.
As
As far as constructability goes,
As far as, is there space enough to construct the bridge if you come first?
I believe the bridge will be first, and
Yeah, and the design has remained the same? It's sort of up in the air, if I recall.
the
The elevation of the bridge?
Yeah,
It's actually about 10 or 12 feet above the existing grade at that point.
Yep.
So when you're in that bottom left-hand corner of the garage, when you're on the road, street F, you're up at like elevation 94. But then obviously the ground on the south side is at elevation
77, 78, yeah. At the canal wall, anyway.
and is there pedestrian access from the side of the garage that's near the canal?
So it's a great question. So as part of this permit, there's a canal walk being designed along the east side, and so not sure, it's probably not gonna work, and I'm not sure how to work the pointer, but,
I can see some kind of a walk there.
yes, so there's, at the northeast corner, at the very tip there, it's a connection to the MPS parcel and sidewalk system that they have there. It'll take pedestrians down through towards the Wasteway and then follow the canal wall. And then it'll also turn the corner. And this is not a part of this, these design plans, but we've accounted for the impervious area that may be eventually designed for at a later time. And so our hope is to permit it through this process now, but regardless, there will be a canal walk sometime in the future that will tie the whole system together elsewhere on the Hamilton Canal District.
What is the material of this garage? Is it poured concrete, or what is it made on?
Precast?
Precast, yeah. Okay, so there's not a lot of small bits of things that might fall into the canal if you're big blocks of cast concrete, right? You would notice if you dropped one. Okay, I think everyone's waiting and wants this bridge yesterday, or not the bridge, the garage,
Yeah.
as far as need for parking downtown. So I hope this is going somewhere pretty much in the near future.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say right now, we're on track for construction to begin sometime in the summer, probably July or August, for construction to begin. It'll be probably 16, 18 months. We're trying to open by the end of 2019, since the courthouse is slated to open in January 2020.
Sounds great. Any further questions from the board at this point?
Yeah, so I just have a question. On the east side, all the drainage that's going to the new outfall on the Wasteway, it looks like there's 6 new catch basins being put in.
So there are small area drains to capture the runoff that's associated with the walkway. There are 2-foot sumps associated with these area drains.
Okay. And then, because right now, all that's more just like site sheet flow that's going down.
Yes, in its existing condition, right now, everything is sheet flowing right into the lower Pawtucket Canal. That's correct.
Okay. And then will there be any work done in the Wasteway?
With the exception of the construction of the inlet, or the new outfalls, excuse me.
Yeah. No,
That's-
you're going to stop right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
And
no,
do you know what type of flows you're looking at?
no.
It's probably in here. I'm just being lazy.
It is in here. I can actually pull them up myself. So we're,
Nothing crazy.
no,
Okay.
no. It's a very small area on the east side. The pipes are 12 inches, and there's still capacity within them, so
Okay.
I know that much.
And then, does any collection from the roof go to that outfall, or does it all go to the left side?
It all goes to the roadway drainage, which eventually then discharges to the lower Pawtucket to just, I guess, a little farther upstream.
Okay, and that's what it looks like there's, existing maybe HDPE pipe there?
So existing, but it's more of like an interim condition, right? Because they're going to be building the roadway almost concurrently kind of with the garage, right? So there'll be some stuff, the bridge will hopefully be in, as the building is constructed. Yes, future existing.
Okay,
Great way
gotcha.
of putting it.
Okay, so everything, collected from the garage goes out on that side, is treated, and then goes into an existing Lowell drainage system.
Right.
Okay,
And there's
good.
actually a water quality unit further downstream on that same system too, so technically it's treated twice.
Okay, and then are there any bathrooms in the garage?
There will be.
There will be, okay.
And there is sanitary that will discharge to a future existing sanitary system as part of the F and G Street construction. So,
You're taking the sewer and
Yeah.
again, connecting to Lowell existing sewer. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay.
I just got a quick question, and this might be a question for Joe, and it's not necessarily related to Conservation Commission, but I'm just curious, with a garage like that, I'm assuming there'll be site security and monitoring, police monitoring, the camera bubbles and that type of thing.
Yeah, there'll be site security. I mean, this is going to be a very busy area between the garage construction and the
Right.
street FNG and bridge construction, basically, as we said earlier, going on at the same time. So yeah, there'll be.
I'm thinking about long-term when people park their cars late at night and that type of,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
That was a requirement of the RFP, to have a closed-circuit TV system.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Oh,
The purpose of the green roof is what, just to get less?
It is a requirement as a form-based code, and my understanding is that it's to appease the residents in the condo across from the wasteway. So the wasteway directly across it is the One Canal Place, I believe or
Okay.
Canal Place
We're not using it to offset anything. It was one of the requirements of the farm waste code.
More aesthetics. Okay, got it.
Okay. Are we gonna be planting anything cool or just green? No tomatoes? To be determined? Okay. Okay.
You guys could partner with Mill City,
That's what we're thinking. Yeah, you could partner, right?
just a thought.
okay, if there's no more questions, do you have anything? I'll open this up to the public, if there's anyone that would like to speak for or against this particular proposal. Would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Joost Verhofstadt. I own 3006 in Canal Place 3. It's probably a little late for these conversations, but since you're a conservation committee, I assume you're more concerned with conservation than the need to build parking garages. And I was a little concerned when you stated a great desire to build this giant parking garage in one of the few open spaces left in the city. I would like to see more of a concern for conservation than for development. That aside, this is an open space surrounded by large buildings. Most of these have been developed into condominium and apartment buildings. There's not a lot of open space left in town. In my opinion, there are wonderful alternatives for building much needed parking space. And obviously this is the most convenient way for a developer to just plop in on a vacant lot, a large building. And I can see how that's appealing to construction contractors and so on. But I don't think it's in the best interest of the city. It takes massive amounts of daylight away from a huge condominium building that's right next door. Now, they did make a little concession. They built, instead of just building a straight wall, they went up a couple stories, went down, and then like that. So you've probably seen that in the picture. And that's appreciated. That shows a recognition of the impact that it will have on the building. So clearly it's recognized that there will be significant impact on the people living there. Canal Place 3, that builds a huge apartment building, condominium building. It's struggling. I don't know how familiar you are with the building. I think the opportunity we have to turn that open space into something that would benefit the thousands of people that live in a very close proximity and all these massive buildings that we have there, taking that opportunity away and putting a huge structure to park cars is the wrong thing for Lowell. Right next to Canal Place 3, there's an empty factory that's rat infested, garbage infested. It's just an empty shell, but it needs to be preserved because it's an old factory and there's a chimney there. Well, if you need to preserve that, why not turn it into a parking garage? It's unused, it's ugly, it's an eyesore, it's there's a fence around it because there's all garbage there. It's terrible. Why don't we develop that into a parking garage? Now, it wouldn't accommodate as many cars, but it would accommodate a portion of the cars that go into the garage. Right next to that parking garage, there's a big parking lot right in front of the National Park building. Why not go down 2 stories? Put a parking garage right there where that parking lot is. Go down 2 stories, maybe go up a couple stories. Now you have a much less intrusive building that can accommodate as many cars as this. Why are we sacrificing this open space and use every square inch to build a giant structure? It significantly deteriorates the livability of Lowell. It does not help the character of Lowell. It does not help conserve Lowell, if we found a way to use existing structures, like some of these empty factories, and integrate those. I mean, we should go to Europe and look at some of those cities, how they do it, because that's what they do. They maintain all these old buildings, and the shells are maintained, and the insides are for whatever purpose. And it's wonderful. And I wish that we did a little bit more of that. I can see why this is appealing to the people who are proposing this. But it's clearly just going to be a big parking garage. When you ask about the garden on the top, who's maintaining that? TBD. You know, the walks along the canal, they're wonderful, but, well, that's still the promised land. That's not part of this project. That's not committed. All we're going to get is a giant structure for a lot of cars. That's it. All that other nice stuff is TBD and promised land, not committed as part of this project. And I think it's going to deteriorate the livability of the city. Any questions for me?
We don't really have control over livability, but I can feel your comments about the open space, but I have to believe that this probably had a large mill building on it at one point.
There was an old factory, a
because it is,
one-story high factory, but there was just a story high, one story. It was a low,
Yeah.
a very large building, but it was 1 story high.
Yeah, well, that was probably more modern than the original building that was there, was probably matching your Canal Place buildings in size and height. You know, it's just, some people would, you say it's open space, some people would say, well, it's an eyesore, it needs to have something on it, but maybe that building that you mentioned that you thought should be a parking garage could be taken down and make that into some kind of open space.
There are thousands
I
of
don't know
people
who
living in
owns
a
it,
very
or-
short area, small area.
But,
And why not make a park area, ball, you know, play for kids to play
Yeah.
ball? No, I've lived there 20 years, and I see Lowell deteriorating down there in the city, and a huge parking garage is not going to add to the quality of life.
well,
So, anyway, I
We
understand that
unfortunately
you
have
are
con-
here as a conservation committee and
we
not
we are
ruling.
only considering the impact on the waterways and the floodplains and the land underwater.
And I'd just like,
Go ahead.
you know, to add one thing, I can empathize with what you're saying, but this is part of an overall redevelopment project.
I know.
You know, I went to college here back in the late 80s, early 90s. From my point of view, this city's in a heck of a lot better conditions than it was back then. And I think there are trade-offs that need to be made, and I think this project is probably as good of a trade-off as you can get, recognizing that not everyone's going to reach agreement, but I can assure you that, you know, some of the things like walkways, I mean, if you've watched any of our meetings, I mean, we've talked about the Concord River Greenway, the Merrimack River walkway. There's a lot of work doing to interconnect these various portions of Lowell that have been blighted and abandoned for years. So I, for one, kind of view this as a piece to an overall project that will greatly benefit the city. And as the chair pointed out, I mean, we're limited in terms of what, you know, we can control. I mean, our jurisdiction here is to make sure that the project is compliant with the Massachusetts Wetland Protections Act. That being said, I think, you know, there have been a lot of things that have been considered to benefit not only the community at large, but also to minimize the impacts to those who live closest to the garage. And I just wanted to offer that. I mean,
Okay, well, I just want you to know that people that live on that side of the building in Canal Place 3 are not thrilled. I mean, right now, that open space, there are groundhogs, there are all kinds of birds. We see hawks there, even though it's, you know, it's just sort of an open, wild, messy area. But the sun comes in over that side. I mean, you know, that's the side that the sun comes in. And it's going to have a big impact. And that building is struggling already.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Well, thank you
and
for hearing me out.
I'm
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
I'm a great supporter of open space, so I can understand your point of view.
What, Joe, is there any, like, history of why the city of Lowell decided to buy that project, or this lot? Or is that before your time, or? I'm sorry, because I'm sure, Lowell obviously probably wanted to get a deal and financially.
Yeah, it's a little bit before my time, but back in probably about maybe 2001, 2003, somewhere in there, was Freudenberg Nonwovens. That was the large manufacturing company that was over there, and they went out of business. And at the time, the city had, just kind of started developing the JAM plan, which the Hamilton Canal District is a part of. And they came to the city recognizing that the city was focused on this area and offered to sell the property as they were going to be closing down, to sell it to the city. And the city took that opportunity to be able to look at this, pretty sizable area in an area that has been underutilized for some time and create the vision that is the Hamilton Canal Innovation District.
So the has owned this lot for a few years now?
For a number of years, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Is there anyone else that would like to make comments either for or against on this particular project, the parking garage? Okay, I entertain a proposal to close the public hearing.
I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Caitlin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now we have an extensive notice here and an extensive set of plans, so I'm not sure we could think up too many special conditions, but
No,
Bill will try.
I didn't really have any special conditions. I think it's pretty comprehensive. I was going to offer a motion to issue a City of Lowell standard order of conditions to approve this project.
Standard order,
Seconded?
seconded. And any more comments from the board?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor of issuing a standard order of conditions on this particular project?
Aye.
Aye. With
Okay.
the approval.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
All right. Okay, thank you for your presentation, and good luck with your project.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, just out of curiosity, who's got the overall responsibility for the city to coordinate traffic between Thorndike Street, bypass, over, the work that's going to be going on here?
Yeah, it's really going to be a team effort between the engineering office and planning and development. It'll be folks like David Sleeper, who's our special, I'm trying to remember his exact, special construction projects manager. Will be out there. You'll have engineers like John Gleason out there, so there'll be a number of folks overseeing the
thanks.
projects.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have a request for determination of applicability by VHB again, for the benefit of the wind companies. The project location is lots 8 and 9 Canal Street, Lowell. This is almost adjacent to our project that we just were discussing. It's a request for the construction of 2 multi-story mixed-use residential commercial buildings in the 100-foot buffer zone and the bank of the lower Pawtucket Canal and in bordering land subject to flooding. The property is located on lots 8 and 9 Canal Street in the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. Welcome.
Thank you. Connor Nagel with VHB, project engineer for representing wind development. With me I have Matt Curtin and Rich Relic from WIN. This project is directly across the canal from the last one you just heard. Lots 8 and 9 on Canal Street, and to the south of those is the Appleton Apartments building. The site is a little over an acre, divided by Canal Street and the new bridge, which will be construction starting in the spring. The proposal is 2 apartment buildings, 5 stories, and a lower half basement story facing the canal. The former mill buildings have been removed from the area. There is a remnant wall all along the canal, historic wall that will remain in place and essentially separates the entire project from the canal. There are 2 penstocks, one where the bridge would cross that has been filled in, and a second to the left as you look at the plan to the west that would be filled in as part of this project. So the site would be separated from the canal. We will be placing erosion controls and a silt net to catch anything prior to the penstock being filled. Silt sacks would be installed in the catch basins in the drainage system in Canal Street, where ultimately the roof drainage from the project would discharge. There's very little site drainage apart from the open space to the right of the plan there, which would be some landscape area drains. There is no vehicular parking as part of the project. The project parking is proposed in the garage that you just approved. That's really all I have to say about the site setup, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I asked the question at the last hearing about the bridge. Have you been in conversation with the city or whoever's in charge of this bridge? Because it appears that your building connects on the upper stories, and I wondered how that is going to affect the bridge.
Yes, we have been in contact. The bridge was designed by VHB, and we have been in contact with, meeting with that team. We understand the elevations of the bridge. The building bridge, the connection between our 2 parcels starts at the 3rd story, which is well clear of, well clear of the top of the bridge.
Now, you're about, is it about 14 feet from the edge of the canal?
Yes.
Yeah.
14 feet clear from the back side of the wall, yes.
So they've already reinforced, I don't know what those blocks, is that a reinforcement of the canal wall, or is that
Yes.
something left over from?
No, I believe it's a reinforcement of the canal wall, which would remain in place.
So you wouldn't be building anything, you wouldn't be changing any of that?
Correct, we would not.
Okay. Well,
Couple questions. One, just out of curiosity, I think the last project we just approved said 988 parking spaces, and there's 156 residences proposed for these 2 new structures. Are you saying that those 156 parking spaces, or I should say those 156 residences are going to be granted exclusive access to that parking? Does it change, bottom line, does it reduce the 988 that are open to the public?
I'm not quite sure how the commitment with the City of Lowell works. I can say there are actually less than 156 since then. The project is starting through schematic design, and I believe that number will be reduced. But that aside, I'm not sure how the deal is structured with the city. But
Joe, do you know? I'm just curious because this is all about public benefit, and I'm just.
Yeah, I haven't been privy to those conversations between, how many potential parking spaces this development could get. That's something a little bit above me.
And then I think, since we just talked about a similar project, I mean, I'd like to discuss it amongst my fellow commissioners here. I mean, I understand the rationale for going for RDA versus a notice of intent, but I'm, for one, more used to seeing RDAs that are much smaller scale and scope than this. I mean, this is a 5-story building, I think you're talking, two
Yes.
5-story buildings. We just heard, some nearby residents that had questions, regarding the garage, and I'm just wondering if we're being fair by not going the NOI route recognize and, everything you're pointing out in your proposal with respect to maintaining the same footprint, not changing stormwater conditions from current condition. Although that being said, I did read in the report that you'd be open to the idea of a green roof, and I would strongly suggest that be something that this commission should consider, just to be consistent with, the overall viewscape for those who do live in that area. So I just like to discuss amongst ourselves, whether or not we think an RDA, is sufficient versus a notice of intent.
I was actually thinking the same thing as I looked over this project. We have been quite involved with the Hamilton Canal District since, there's so many canals, 3 at least, that go through there. And except for this art project that came up earlier tonight, I don't think any of them were approved under RDAs.
We filed an RDA in consultation with the city planning department, a conservation agent. On their recommendation, we filed an RDA.
And one thing we could do, we could find a positive determination given the scale and the scope, and that means next step would be to issue a notice of intent, correct? We would go with the notice of intent route next, if we found a positive determination.
Well, that's what would be
Right,
required.
right.
Yeah.
I guess, what further information would you be looking for in the filing of an NOI?
I, for one, it's not so much what I would want more. I'm just thinking in terms of fairness and public disclosure and giving the opportunity for the public to comment. That's the whole purpose for a notice of intent, correct?
Yep.
Or I should say a part of it is projects that are larger scale, giving abutters and nearby interested parties having an opportunity to publicly comment one way or another for the project. And as the chair just pointed out, it's just unique in tonight that we've got 3 projects all taking place in the same area, and certainly the art installation project, that is of a small scale, and I think it easily passes what I would call the straight face test that an RDA, I would certainly go that route. I've been on this commission a number of years, and for projects, for one, I'm a big advocate of the RDA route, and I'd like to avoid doing a notice of intent. I just, for one, would like to get a sense from my fellow commissioners as to whether or not, given the scale of this project, should this type of project have a public comment period, and knowing that the way to do that is through the NOI route.
You're also in the 100-year floodplain?
If you look at a FEMA map, we are, but as discussed in what we filed, the project site is actually elevated above the plain, so we are not. There was a letter of map amendment to FEMA.
Okay.
That shows that we are, I believe, about 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain, so technically, no, we are not in the floodplain.
Okay. Maybe that's, if you were in the floodplain, 100% notice of intent,
Sure. Yeah.
but they're just in the buffer zone. So that's probably why our office, recommended the RDA.
Well, my concern is that it's also, it appears that you're entirely covering the parcel with a building that is only 15 feet. Now, the buffer zone of canals, even in the city, is 25. And you're very, very close, and that's a particular wall that, well, perhaps it's in good condition now, but it was needing reinforcement in the near past. It's very dense there, and the site slopes down to that canal. I almost feel like you're filling in space that maybe would be used for holding floodwaters should the downtown flood sometime.
I guess in response to that, we are above the 100-year floodplain. So, that site will not hold water from the floodplain as it is. So the construction of the building won't impact
Right,
that.
I wrote down those figures on the last one.
Will there be a net increase in impervious surface?
I believe there will be a net decrease given the green space to the plan left, the open space. The site right now is, well, there are some stockpiles to the Canal Street side, a temporary condition, but the footprint will be the same as it was, and most of the old foundation is still in place.
Is there a, it's hard to tell, is there a walkway between the back of the building and the old structure itself?
No, because of the abutments, it's cut up into sections. That could potentially be some courtyards, but there would be no walkway through there. And there will be no, very unlikely there'll be any way to cross under the Canal Street Bridge either.
All right, so there's no public access on that side?
Correct,
But on the other side of the canal, there would be?
yes.
So on this existing conditions plan, you do have like topo lines going down, but is that all topo lines on an existing concrete slab?
I'm not entirely sure that it's under the topo lines, but it is concrete up to the toe of them. I don't know that they would have removed it from under. I can't be sure about that.
Okay, but for the most part, this is all pavement and concrete, it's not this beautiful grass area that you're putting this building on?
It most certainly is not.
Yeah.
I don't think the slope is paved, is it, at this
The
point?
slope is not paved,
No.
but it's rough stockpile. It's not graded.
Wasteland, basically.
And then have you guys done any soil borings? Do you also have contaminated soil?
I'm not aware of that.
Not that you're, okay, you just didn't do any borings? You've not done any. Okay, and will there be a basement?
There won't be a below-grade basement. There
Okay.
will be what would be sort of a basement level, looking out to what I said might be courtyards if they chose to open it up at the existing foundation. That's below Canal Street, as you see the topo going down. So there's a half basement, but it's walkout. It's not, we're not going into the ground.
Okay, you're not digging,
Correct.
gotcha. And what, have you been before other boards in Lowell? Just curious.
Not to date,
Okay, so this is the first board?
yes.
Okay.
We have had meetings with city staff.
You have, I'm sorry, what?
We've had meetings with city staff,
city.
but not before any boards.
Okay.
We received a certificate of consistency with the form code from the city as well.
Okay.
Yeah, as Connor mentioned, there have been some meetings with city staff. They've been in communication with the historic board. Just to speak a little bit too about the scale of the building, the applicant has received a preliminary certificate of consistency from the city in terms of the building design. There is no variance that's going to be needed in terms of height or any proximity to the canal. There will probably need to be some either variance or easement from the city to be building over the right of way. We're still looking to determine the proper mechanism for that. The applicant would have to try to obtain to be able to do that. But otherwise, by and large, this proposal is in compliance with what the master plan and the form-based code called for.
What's a certificate of consistency?
So it's like a preliminary review of the proposal. So there are city staff that are part of the Hamilton Canal District Review Group. So we basically give a run, go through the proposal and see are there going to be any variances needed? Are you going to need to go in front of the Conservation Commission, X, Y, Z?
Okay.
So we kind of provide that information to the applicant. So after we let them know that they're going to have to come in front of the Conservation Commission, they went and filed here.
Is it even like down to like, oh, we want you to use certain architectural features to look like consistency among
Yeah.
the other buildings?
That's something that gets reviewed at the historic board level, so that's something
Okay.
they will have to do.
Gotcha.
So with that being said, Joe, if one were to look at this project as part of the overall master plan as a component rather than, just an island, so to speak, I guess I could view this as kind of a minor component of the overall master plan.
I think that's probably pretty fair.
Yeah, rather than looking at it as a 5-story building, you know, at an individual plot.
Yeah, I mean, it is a significant development for the city, you know, obviously something that the city supports. If there was some concern, you know, from the commission about some outreach, maybe there's an opportunity to reach out to some of the adjacent properties, organize a neighborhood group meeting for the applicant to be able to go out and gather some concerns and incorporate any concerns into their design.
Right. But if I put on my Conservation Commission hat, just focusing on the Wetlands Protection Act, you know, the technical side of me says that this project doesn't really have any adverse impact. I'm just trying to reconcile that with a fairly good-sized project,
Yeah.
you know, and being transparent to the public. But considering that it's part of the master plan for the Hamilton district, and we've already talked about 2 other projects, I guess I could be convinced that we could go the RDA route. That being said, I would strongly suggest to my fellow commissioners that we look at a green roof type system similar to what the garage would have, just so that we have a similar look and feel for the entire area, and you don't have residents in one building having to look at the industrial plain roof, you know, and others get the benefit of looking at a green roof.
Sure.
Do we have a drainage plan in here?
No, this is a very preliminary plan, but really the only drainage we have is the roof and the hardscape landscape area to the plan left that will tie into the existing drainage in Canal Street in front of the building, which discharges to the canal on the left-hand side of the building.
So to be clear, the roof is based, the majority of the drainage.
Vast majority.
And if a green roof would create a lot of infiltration and less drainage, correct?
Wait, so what, you're proposing they do a green roof? Okay.
Similar to what we just talked about, just so that whole area would have a similar look and feel.
Is that an option?
They talked about being open to the idea in their report.
It's something that we can explore. I think our designs are in a very schematic phase right now, so we have some degree of flexibility. We can certainly talk with the architect about exploring that. I think we're also exploring potential amenities on the roof, so maybe there's a way to incorporate.
Okay. So let's say no green roof and it all needs to go down. It would be exterior roof leaders?
For a building of this nature, I would think that it would be interior.
Interior?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's not the resource areas that we have to protect, I don't think they're affecting that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can make them do a green
No,
roof. And it's very expensive to do a green roof, so.
What I'm saying is, if I take the proposal as written, it's suggested, I mean, I think there's flexibility. I'm not talking about, you know, some exotic green roof. I think the thinking would be is just to have the roofs, given the proximity of this building to the garage, to have a similar viewscape across that area, I think is important. I think we could put in there a condition in the RDA for them to consider, you know, consistent with what's they already put in their own proposal, you know, some sort of green roof considerations to both account for the roof drainage, number one, and have the aesthetics of the building align as best as possible with the surrounding buildings and the viewscape for the people that are going to live in that area. I don't think that's an unreasonable request to put in.
Yeah, I just know that the city's currently creating a stormwater master plan that will eventually lead to a stormwater ordinance. I know we're not there yet, but
You know what,
I should know
MS4
this
permit?
too, but don't
Like
you?
an MS4 permit?
Yeah, so like on an MS4 standpoint, shouldn't you be collecting this drain water and treating it before you just put it into the drain system on Canal Street?
Treatment is not required for rooftop
Roof, yeah.
runoff, and we don't have any vehicular pavement.
Okay, okay. All right then.
So is there a drainage outlet into the canal from this property at the present time?
Yes, to the, it may be just across the property line, but on the plan left as you look at it, the drain line from Canal Street discharges into the canal.
Computer drain. So this is the drain right here. And then it runs.
That's a public,
Yes.
public drain.
Yes.
Yeah, City of Lowell owns that. So, I'm gonna make a motion to issue a -3, and then if anything were to substantially change, including doing a green roof, I would say if you guys could just maybe come back and present. But you have your -3, so we wouldn't be changing that. But yeah,
Can't we put something in the,
Yeah.
let's put it
yeah, but
right
I'm not
right in
making a
the
condition that they have to do it, but just as you continue to go to boards in Lowell, and if anything, if the city makes you do anything substantial.
If it isn't mentioned, the next person that wasn't at this hearing might
Yeah,
not take it into consideration. You don't know who's gonna be working on this.
Yeah, I don't think there's a need to mandate, I guess is what your concern is, Caitlin. I agree with you. But I'm actually trying to find exactly where I read it in the report, because I know I read it somewhere. I'm trying to think exactly what page, but basically a consideration, for the very reasons I mentioned, the aesthetics in the area, reduction of any sort of, anything to reduce infiltration, to improve infiltration, reduce, conveyance of water somewhere else is a good thing. I think we can put it as a condition, but provide enough flexibility. Obviously, it becomes cost prohibitive or for whatever other reason. I mean, I don't want that to change things, but I agree with Louisa that we want to at least, have it written down and acknowledged. Otherwise, if it isn't, someone's going to forget about it. Not everyone's going to go back and review the video from today's presentation. So I would, for one, would propose we put it in as a condition, careful thought and consideration be given to the possibility of a green roof, consistent with what we've already talked about. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't know how we want to word it right now.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to say. If you guys decide to do a green roof, can you just come back here and present to us your green roof?
Certainly.
With careful consideration.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Or then again, and if something substantially
Yeah.
changes based on other boards, if you could come back as
So,
well and just let us know what those
Jared,
changes are.
You getting that, or are we being too loosey-goosey?
I think I have it.
All right. So there's a motion right now, right?
With that condition. Yep.
Does anyone else have conditions that they feel strongly about?
I'll second it.
Great.
Okay, motion made, seconded. Discussion? Okay,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is a request for a certificate of compliance, Millview Estates, DEP number 206-582. Order of condition, the project location is 1975 to 1995 Middlesex Street. And the order of conditions was issued to Kazanjian Enterprises on July 1st, 2015. This was a construction of dwellings, condominiums, I believe, within the buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Gregory Curtis here on behalf of Kazanjian Enterprise, also Millview Estates LLC, and with me is Alan Kazanjian. One correction on that notice, it said 2015, it should be 2005.
Oh, okay.
So we came before you about 12 years
while.
ago when we started this project, and we've finally completed the project, and now we are at the stage where we'd like to clean up remaining matters, one of those being the order of conditions that was placed on the project in 2005, because we were building in a small area in the back that was part of the buffer zone. And that buffer zone from the Merrimack River and also the train tracks that run through there, just the very back property line was in the buffer zone and a portion, I think, of one of the middle buildings. So we've completed our project. We've submitted as-built plans to the city. We have some larger scale ones here if you want to look at those. I think there was a site visit out there last week by Christine McCall to look at the site. What basically was completed was a low block wall, and then on top of that, a vinyl fence, and for two reasons. One, to keep, that area protected so people don't walk out into the back for two reasons. You have safety, there's railroad tracks, and two, we don't want people walking out into what would be the buffer zone. So it's basically an enclosed development with a wall in the front and vinyl fencing in the back. So we feel we've done a great job on it. Finally, after some difficult economic times, we've been able to sell all 74 units, and I think people are very happy with it, and we're, at some point in the very near future, going to turn it over to the unit owners. So it's something that we wanted to clear up before. Every time somebody goes to either refinance or we were selling, we'd have to give an indemnification agreement because we still had the order out there and we couldn't really deal with completing the order until the project was complete. There was a special condition on the original order to state that had to be built in accordance with the plans, and that's what we've done.
Yeah. We did see pictures from the site visit, and we did release one unit, I believe, at one of our
Yeah, there was, I
precinct meetings.
dealt with the attorney, and she was adamant about, she didn't want an indemnification letter from another attorney, so she said, I have to go get a release. I said, okay, if that's what you need to do, so I appreciate that. And now hopefully we can clear up, the order and record that certificate of compliance at the registry, and we won't run into that problem
Well,
in the future.
It is a minor area of resource, considering the size of the project.
Yes.
And, it is separated from the river with the fence, as you say, and the
Yeah.
railroad tracks.
Yeah, you have the railroad tracks, and, that, of course, the railroad tracks were there for many, many years, but for safety purposes, having that vinyl fence up there and having these kind of precast blocks, it prevents any erosion from coming back onto the property or going the other way. I think the elevation of the railroad tracks is higher than, lower? It's lower, so it kind of prevents anything from, eroding or running onto what would be the buffer zone.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good, and it's only one block high. I think it's 2 feet high, and then on top of that is a 6-foot vinyl, that'll be,
Right.
The permanent vinyl fencing.
Well, the last building, I think, didn't go up too long ago. I know.
Yeah, they were in the
kept
front.
looking over that way and saying, oh, he's got more to go.
Yeah, we were doing them in phases, as most condominiums, they build them in phases for financing purposes, and up in the front by the Middlesex Street was the last building. And then we had to go in and do paving and other improvements, and finally we're at this point, so it's been a long road. I don't know how many orders of conditions go out 12 years, but sometimes they go out 12 years because people don't bother to come in to get the certificate, but we wanted to make sure we do this because we have property owners that want to make sure that they don't have this issue in the future.
I think this is an easy one, if we can have a motion.
I'll make a motion to issue certificate of compliance.
Seconded.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, and I'll
Thank
just let
for
you know
waiting.
that, you know,
Congrats.
the current owner of the property is the Millview Estates LLC. So it started out as Kazanjian, but when we developed the condominium, so it would be, I guess we could put both names, but we're gonna record it on the certificates of title, and then also was deregistered. So I'll record it on both sides of the registry for purposes of informational purposes.
Yeah, good.
Thank you very much.
What about on the Lowell 5 site that you have? Are you gonna be coming in for a certificate of compliance for that soon?
That's pretty much how.
That's pretty much done, right?
I think that's pretty much done,
I think that might be pretty much done too. I don't know if all the landscaping's all completed, but we're,
One near Drum Hill,
Yeah, when you
one,
come,
yeah, the one on Westford Street, Westford
where
and
that
Wood.
the oldest
Yeah.
house was.
What's the plan for the Bauer House?
Well, we've been working with Steve Stoll, and we'd like to, well, we rehabbed a lot of the outside, as you know, but we'd like to do something inside also.
Yeah.
So we can actually use the building for something.
Yeah.
And when you get to that near completion point, make sure those straw wattles and hay bales are removed, because I think they're still there at the bottom of the embankment.
Yep.
No, but we have to
When we're done,
check
when
out
when
the
they're,
stabilization first.
Yeah, that looks good when you're coming around at the light.
it's a nice
Yeah, it looks
gateway
really
entrance.
Well, thank you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks for your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, other business?
Other than minutes, Jared?
The minutes are giving us problems in that there's so many of them. We're not used to collecting so many all at once. I found one that was looking good, but I just couldn't get through them all. So I don't know whether we want to vote on some of them, if anyone else saw some that were,
Well, I would say, that can we vote on the June 28th ones?
you were at that meeting.
Yeah.
I know, I didn't miss any of these meetings, it's just a matter of
'Cause I'm okay with that
plowing
one.
through them.
Pete,
Anything
you got-
else?
No, I'm good with that one too, yeah.
Right.
November 8th, I didn't find any,
I haven't had a chance to look at I mean, my recommendation is, I think we're good with the June 28th ones, Jared, so those can be finalized. I saw a number of typos and errors on the September 13th ones, and I think those ones need to be added. I can send you comments later, so I think I'm gonna hold off on that one. I'm personally fine with the September 27th notes. I don't know if you are, Louisa.
I just haven't been able to get through all of these yet. And I have a question. We have a lot of new board members. I'm wondering, do we need a quorum to approve some of these minutes, or could they just be approved by those who were in attendance? Because, for instance, Caitlin wasn't on the board for many of these meetings.
That's an excellent question. I'm not sure on the parliamentary procedure on that point, but I can follow up internally and let you know.
Okay, and that gives us another meeting to read them all.
Are you okay with June 28th, though?
Why don't we just
All right.
put them all off?
I was gonna try and knock one down. All right, well, sounds like we're gonna postpone them again.
Okay, we're gonna make
Sorry.
a better effort for the next meeting for the minutes.
I'll make sure you have tonight's minutes as well for the next one.
That's our penance.
He's gonna give them to us tomorrow.
Thank you. If there's no other business before us, I'd entertain a motion. Okay,
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
motion to adjourn,
Second.
seconded. The Caitlins are heard, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Good night.
you, and good night.